Mabuhay, this is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. Here's a part 2 of this video about how you can know if you should break up a relationship with anyone, but mostly I'm focusing on, very long distance overseas, like thousands of miles away, like I did when I married my wife in the Philippines. I didn't have to break up with anybody. I actually told one woman, the communication was just awful. I think she was using a translator, and it just didn't really count as breaking up because it never got anywhere. It would take half an hour to get a response, and sometimes it would be the same thing 2 or 3 times. I think the woman was using a translator, and I just moved on from her. But the others went really well, and I found my wife, and we got married very quickly. So last time I gave 10 things to think about to evaluate whether it's something to continue or not. I've got 10 more today, and I think 10 or 11 more in the next one. Please let me know if you can think of some more. I just, did a little bit of online research here and use some of my own experience. So let's start with, get this one out of the way, asking for money. Now, I didn't even think of this one right away. Maybe it's because it's kind of obvious, but time and time again, a Westerner will say, well, I gave this woman some money for a phone or a load, or maybe we started building something. We were going to be together. They hadn't met. And next thing you know, she's pulled a fast one on him, and they are no longer together. So my wife feels that you should never give a Filipina any money for anything whatsoever that you haven't met yet or made a commitment to. And so I will defer to her and say that is the best way to look at it, as hard as it can be for a Westerner to say, but I want to just help. And if I buy her this phone, then we can communicate. And that just sets up the whole thing. Well, what it could set up is her asking for more and more since she knows now she can get a phone from you. That's one test maybe. But my wife would say, let her go out and get a job for that phone. Let her go out and get a job for that load. If you want to marry a responsible person, you can do what you want with that information. Another thing that would help to know if maybe you should end the relationship would be you come to the point where you just don't trust each other. I just did a video series on trust, and if you feel like there's a lack of trust, something isn't right, well, find somebody else, or find out, if you can, what is getting in the way of earning your trust. Maybe she doesn't trust you, maybe you don't trust her, but lack of trust, well, that could mean it's time to move on. Then there is lack of commonality, which does not mean that you have to have a whole bunch of things in common. I don't think my wife and I had too much in common. And if I thought so now, I wouldn't have known that at the time, because we got married in less than 8 weeks. And yeah, we do have a little bit more things in common, like we're both homebodies for the most part, but she likes to travel, so I go along with that, and I've enjoyed that. So I don't think, and I've made videos for YouTube, if I haven't done them yet for TikTok, I will, about how much chemistry do you have to have, how much commonality do you have to have. I don't think it's a big deal like most experts seem to think. Maybe I'm just willing to take more chances. I don't know. But if there is what you consider a lack of commonality for you, and you're uncomfortable with it, then after such and such time, maybe it's time to move on. How about this one? You don't respect each other. At some point, if you feel like, well, she just doesn't respect you for some reason, maybe she's doesn't say anything, she's not showing up for chats at all, or she's late, she seems distant, distracted, lack of respect, whatever that means to you, then that may be a sign to move on from a long-distance relationship. Remember, here at Love Beyond the Sea, I want to help people find one and stay in it, even through the rough times. But that doesn't mean that you have to suffer through one that really has no signs of life. And if you check that link tree up above, you'll see a book I wrote which has some resources on there, especially a bunch of questions you can ask to get to know each other at different stages, and another affiliate link where I met my Filipina wife. Another one I listed here was if you are the man, if you are afraid of commitment, then you want to ask yourself where that's stemming from. And I'm not going to suggest anybody that's uncomfortable with doing anything that they do it. If there's a fear of commitment or trust or something else, please don't forge ahead and do something that you might regret. But that's one thing I thought of. Another, communication suffers. Maybe it's just not as much as it was at the start. There's a lack of, like I said, being on time. Maybe you've run out of things to say, and she's silent a lot and not really offering up questions, and it just doesn't seem to have much direction. That would be a sign maybe that one isn't going to work out. I listed lack of commitment. I intended that to be different than being afraid of commitment. And so that would be like, well, maybe you're committed, but maybe she isn't. Or maybe you're not afraid of commitment, but maybe you are the one that is kind of slacking off and not feeling as excited to contact them for a webcam. And maybe you feel like your enthusiasm is lacking and you're not as committed to the relationship as you once were. Well, that's something to evaluate. Just several more. Let's say you don't look forward to the chats anymore. It's just not the same pizzazz that it used to be. It's getting old. You're not learning anything new. You feel differently. That's something to think about and evaluate. Or you could feel uninspired. Maybe that's part of that same thing. You're just not as inspired as you were. The last one I'll mention here is you're staying together only because there isn't anybody else. It's this woman, and there's no one else. You kind of want to find someone else. You know this isn't going very well, but you haven't found anyone else, and you don't want to lose this one. So it's kind of like a placeholder. But maybe if it's not going anywhere, the time invested in that would be better spent looking for someone new, even if they don't exist at the time. So let me know what you think about this. It's just some signs. Maybe a relationship should end, and maybe the relationship never even got as far as what you would consider a relationship. A relationship to me might mean something else to you, depending on what your definition and your standards are. So please leave comments, and I'll have another part coming up on this later on Love Beyond the Sea.